I think there should be a consciousness of that always. And especially now with, again, what you said, like all the AI, I think one of my biggest issues is it's all very black box. Like we don't actually know thoroughly what's happening in an LLM. And that really scares me. And that's also, all the use cases that you're seeing where, they're hallucinating or saying some crazy stuff or, and I think that's because we maybe are not always asking the question, should we actually be doing this? And like, what's the consequence of what we're doing?
Hey there, welcome to Betatalks, the podcast.
I'm Rick.
And I'm Oscar. And today we are joined by Megan Bloemsma, who is a data and AI specialist and our favorite Dungeons and Dragons enthusiast. Welcome, Megan.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
It's so great to have you on the show. I mean, I think we were discussing this a little bit before we actually hit record, and I've been kind of like chasing you to come on the show, or maybe even stalking you to come on the show. So I'm really happy that you're finally here, right?
I'm super happy to be here as well.
Oh, great. And so one of the things that you, of course, talk about is the fact that you're on data and AI. And sometimes to me, it feels a little bit like AI is everywhere now, right? But like literally everywhere. And then even in places where you think this should just be a normal either interface or tool that does something for me. But even then, there's AI.
Yeah, it's. I think it's in too many places as well at the moment. It seems to be presented as a solution for everything, and it's a great tool, but I don't think it's the solution to everything.
And it hardly ever is, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, it is one of the things that I think is a big piece of feedback that people are giving now. Why is AI everywhere, even in places where I think should it even be there, right?
I know. And I think I'm one of those people that even though this is my job and this is my career, I'm actually quite, not cynical, but I'm very critical of AI and I'm very critical of where we're using it. And I think it's being hyped way too much. I think it can do great things and it can add real value and it can really make people's lives better. But if you look at the kind of the average AI application right now, it does not get me excited, to be honest.
I can imagine. I mean, yesterday I was making a quick note in Notepad, and I saw this little icon on the top, and I thought, what's that? And then it's apparently AI in Notepad that actually says shorten, lengthen. So you can in Notepad. So you can type some text and then you can say, make this longer, and it will probably add some fluff around it, and then you have longer text. So I'm not entirely sure if that's the way we want to bring AI into the world.
I agree.
But you also said a thing about data, and then data science has moved tremendously over the past couple of years. A lot has been added to the ecosystem. I think it also matured a lot over the last couple of years. What's your vision on the current state of data science, and then maybe even how do you look at the future?
I think this is so incredibly interesting. So for me, I graduated from my data science studies almost 10 years ago by now. I've always said and always joked that the moment I graduated, everything I learned became outdated immediately.
True.
And I think just the question of what is data science is such an interesting one, because on the one hand, we have like academic data science, and that's where we're also looking at, in my opinion, at least, because I don't think we're all agreeing on what it actually is. We're looking at like research into AI and into like data systems, and it's huge. And then there's kind of data science in the field. And I think data science in the field is a million things at the moment. And I think you see that as well when you're looking at the vacancies that are, in the job market, when you're looking at what are companies doing with data science. It can be everything from they have Excel on their laptops to we're really building all these great custom algorithms and we're doing all these great things. And I'm of the very strong opinion that I think data science and software engineering are in a marriage. Like I think the future of data science is software engineering.
How do you envision that? Is that because we are going to need software engineering to take the next step into making information out of data, or?
I think it's this way because if you're looking at data science in the field, you're generally speaking, unless you're working for some kind of research department or you're working for a huge enterprise which has like an R&D budget and everything, you're applying data science, you're applying AI. And I think when we're talking about the application of these models, that's immediately where you're going to run into software engineering, and you're going to run into having to work together with different departments and different people, and not just being in your little data science or AI bubble. And it's exactly why I think software engineering is something that we should be focusing more on as data scientists, and that you're actually, usually what I'm hearing is you're being forced to learn pretty quickly as soon as you're going to start working at a company.
Yeah, there's definitely a shift I've seen. Like when we did like 5 to 10 years ago, we had someone doing machine learning or whatever. It always felt like they had this part, maybe in Azure or whatever, but it's a lab.
Yeah.
And it's really like sciencey. And you give them some data and they come back and they parse their own PDFs and whatever. But the moment you go to scale, you go to a practical application of it, there's so much stuff you would do with your regular infrastructure. You need DevOps, you need different environments. So I think 30, 40 years ago, it was computer science and it went into software engineering for us. And you got like more control in like the DevOps movement. You're seeing that shift now happening from data scientists going into this. And I'm sometimes surprised the amount of titles floating around indeed.
It's insane, right?
Yeah, but it also makes sense because it was at some point was just a BI specialist. Okay, but like a data engineer to me sounds different. They're busy with creating layers and data, and but you also have a data scientist who would make a model for you. While every freaking company out there is now having some AI team making their product better. It's like how to approach that. Also, like if you're a company, if you're an IT company, or you have a product, like how to start gaining this knowledge in house. Like I know we try to study as much as possible ourselves. We get some consultants from companies that are specialized, but if you would really I know, like follow the book, you would need a team of like 5-6 people to build this yourself. While there's also let's just throw this problem to an LLM at the moment. So
I was just going to say, because I think the projects are also changing, and this is something very recent because, for the last, I don't know how many years, it's always been first step, you're going to need data. If we have the data, we need to pre-process the data. We might need to add stuff onto the data. We need to clean it. We need to do all these things. And once we have that data, and mind you, like this process takes like 80% up of your project, only then can we start looking at, hey, what kind of algorithms are there? Do we want something out of the box? Are we building something ourselves? Then comes the question of ML ops. How are we monitoring this? How are we actually like taking because data science usually is quite hypothetical. It's like, hey, we want to get a certain accuracy or a certain statistical or mathematical model to prove something. But that does not mean that that model is also ready for production or that we can actually do something with that model. It just means that you've proven a hypothesis on, I don't know, a recommendation system or on image recognition or whatever. And I think now with Gen AI, that data bit, sometimes it doesn't even need to be there. Like you don't need the data because there is already like a big model out there, or there is something you can already reuse. And I'm not saying that's always the right way to go in a project, because right now we're living in a time where the answer to everything is, let's use OpenAI, let's do ChatGPT, just take this huge model and just like, I always say it's like a Thor's hammer, right? You have a problem, just like start whipping it with the hammer. You're like, I'm sure that'll work. But I think we're also now just in how do you call it, like a space and time where we're also needing to refigure this out. Like what does the data science team do? We maybe not even need it right now. I always think we do, because whatever you're doing, there's going to be data. You need to understand what it is. But that whole step of intensive like data gathering, data cleaning, data pre-processing, I don't think we always need that anymore in a project.
You mentioned like the moment I graduated, stuff got obsolete.
Yeah.
Do you really think that also for like 95% of the problems, like these models could help you out or could be a replacement of everything we were doing? Or do you think we will go back and it's more of an entry point now for a business to quickly, with a bit of a Thor's hammer indeed, prove a concept, and then it's like, okay, if we want to really scale this or be able to afford it, we're going to retrain ourselves?
Again, I love applied AI and applied data science, and I think the first question is always like, what are we actually trying to solve here? Because as I said, right now, the solution to everything is we'll just deploy like basically ChatGPT for our own company. We'll use an AI agent, we'll use whatever. And I think it's been like this way with IT projects in general. Just asking the question, what are you actually trying to solve? Like, what is the actual problem here? Maybe like a Power BI will suffice. Maybe, you know, we're not even having to look at AI, which is a difficult conversation because this is my job, right? And my job is to build beautiful AI data science applications. But sometimes that's just simply not the answer. Sometimes the answer is a web app. And I think that should be fine. So I think it's more about taking a step back and also just looking at like, what are we trying to solve here? And then there's a beautiful toolbox of all these things that we can use from AI perspective to solve something.
Yeah, so you actually, going back to that statement that software engineering is part of or might be the entire future of data science. Do you think that then somewhere in the future we will have multidisciplinary teams as we've had them for many years, but now we will incorporate data science and data tech in that as well? Or do you still think that for the foreseeable future, even though software engineering might still be a very important part, data science will always be somewhat separate of the actual software development team?
I find this difficult to estimate. Right now, I'd say it would still be a separate data science team, but with a very strong software engineering focus. So you have the concept of the T-shaped developer, right? That's kind of how I would see it. And that's simply because at the moment, there's still always data in projects, and you need someone that understands how these data streams work, what they do. You need to monitor them, etc. And I do think that's kind of, as we say, there's like a vak apart. I think it's something that you can learn, but it's
a league of their own.
It is a league of their own still. So for now, I think it's still a separate thing, but I do think we should be more open that we're not the special snowflakes maybe that we think we are sometimes.
What is your also, because you're saying indeed like the software engineering skill needs to be brought into the data engineering realm or the data science realm, but do you think also it's their job or your job to, if you look at the data itself, to also have the legal aspect to it? Like, what are we processing? Where are we looking for? Is that yours, or is that still a separate compliance?
I think there's definitely an ethical aspect to this. I think, and not just data science, I think data scientists, I think everybody should be aware of, is what we're doing with this data, is what we're building, what are the longer term consequences of this? Is there bias in this? I think there should be a consciousness of that always. And especially now with, again, what you said, like all the AI, I think one of my biggest issues is it's all very black box. Like we don't actually know thoroughly what's happening in an LLM. And that really scares me. And that's also, all the use cases that you're seeing where, they're hallucinating or saying some crazy stuff or, and I think that's because we maybe are not always asking the question, should we actually be doing this? And like, what's the consequence of what we're doing?
Because it's easiest to just throw it in an LLM and see what happens.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, maybe a small language model will be way better suited at what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm super excited about small language models. I think they can be more focused. I think they're a little bit more Well, they're still difficult because we call them small, but they're not actually small, right? So they're still pretty
Smaller.
difficult to, but like look into and be transparent and see what's happening. But it's a little bit easier, or seemingly easier.
Mm-hmm.
So they are more targeted at one specific task, and I always try to see it the same way as if I'm going into the woods, I'm not knowing what I'm going to do. I'll just bring my survival knife and see if it happens. But if I know that the only thing I will be doing is sawing off branches, I'm bringing a saw, not a multi-tool, because I know that's what I will be doing. So if that's what you need, if you need one specific task, go for a optimized model.
And it forces to ask the question, what am I looking for in the woods? Which is always a good one.
Yeah, but what you see, and I think the hype got unlocked by businesses and even small businesses to start any project here, because I've seen plenty of projects failing with a really good idea and a valuable idea, with the whole, we have a ramp up of 2 years getting data, cleaning data, using data that we actually shouldn't use to make a proof of concept, like those kinds of problems. And it's like, okay, but we will not be able to make this scale because we now deployed such a tiny part of the actual functionality that we want to prove. Like by itself, it's not valuable. It's in a chain. And now we can basically write 3 or 4 prompts in a day, do a hackathon. It's like, oh, this would be really great. Now we have a different problem. It's not testable. and
the consistency, the quality
is a problem. Like, and basically, if we scale this, it might be a bit expensive because this model is ridiculous.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
And that is dropping down. It's also a bit scary because that basically, if this becomes a commodity, and if you look at some of the models, really comparing to 2 years ago, they're cheap to run, even though they're let's say they're using some power. And they're ridiculous. And indeed, the unpredictability for me is very tricky.
I also think that the consistency of the models is one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing at the moment, because even if you do have let's just keep it easy, right? Like a great prompt that you just want to re-ask a certain amount of times per day, it might give you a different answer every time you post it. And that's a really difficult one. And also, and the ethics come back into this, like ideally you want to have like a good monitoring system as well, where you can see like, is my model drifting, or is my like data drifting? And I still find it quite impossible to do with these LLMs. And I am really hoping somebody's going to crack this nut sometime soon, because I think it's crucial to get some kind of insight and to be able to monitor what the model is doing, but also to increase the consistency, because otherwise it's so difficult, what you say, to build something tangible, reliable, scalable for the longer term.
Yeah, because in the end, what you see, if it doesn't work, or doesn't work quite well, when you start shaving a prompt or doing a second prompt to check the answer and maybe do a loop, and like you see all kinds of crazy models now exist, and people on LinkedIn making nice drawings with arrows and things, and basically selling a lot of bullshit.
Those are probably generated by AI.
In the end, like, we want to be able to plug the debugger in, just put the breakpoint there. Why did it go left in this case? And that is hard, and we couldn't do that in the beginning with software just like that. And of course we could reason, but now you're reasoning from some kind of gut feeling because it's a language that you're throwing at it. And that it behaves like that is very hard to do. So the answer should also be that it should be a similar kind of technology where this is built on, to actually be able to debug it, because actually looking at that data doesn't make any sense for a human.
Yeah.
No, it does. True. So one of the things that I think I've heard quite a few times on how you look at software development and AI is those two really need to work in tandem, right? So AI really benefits from doing that together with the software development, and to make that a multidisciplinary thing that you do, instead of just an AI specialist and a software developer. So is there currently something that you do in your projects to already incorporate that, or are you maybe preparing for that to be more heavily so in the future?
Something I try to do always is have some explicit cross-collaboration. That's maybe the best way to put it. So like you said, instead of having an individual data scientist or AI specialist, an individual software engineer, try to put them together as early on and make sure they understand of each other, what they need, what are kind of the challenges that they see, and also be sure that they're kind of speaking the same language. So I've done both roles. So I've been both a data scientist and a software engineer, and I think both look at a project very differently, and they also see different challenges. They see different easy parts and hard parts, and just having a simple conversation in the beginning, preferably even with a customer there if it's possible, really helps along the way. It kind of helps you recognize those blockers beforehand.
Yeah, and then sometimes probably you'll also get a lot of additional information, right? So you'll maybe even get sidetracked from time to time.
Yeah, 100%. But I think that happens in every project, at least the ones that I'm in.
Yeah, and it's moving fast, but all the noise isn't helping to focus on what's actually valuable that's moving.
True.
Because a lot of stuff is just fluff around it and nothing really changed. Because of course there are things shifting, but like some of the big companies are also hitting some walls now.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because once you start looking really at the research, like the academic research that's being done, it usually forms some kind of foundation for whatever new stuff is being developed. That's still like a pretty small field. And if you're looking worldwide, I think there's a lot of people working with AI, but the people who are actually developing the field and like working on the math and working on all the back stuff, that's not that big group of people. So it's still like it's moving incredibly fast. I feel also like it's not going in a linear way, but it's like new technology and we're on a new plateau and then like everything's changed again.
It goes in waves. I completely agree with you on that one. It tends to be a little bit like, okay, so I think we all go, oh, wait a minute. And
Exactly.
Like this science was there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The big breakthrough is that we got the compute at some point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the biggest thing is then it got a hype and therefore there's money. And now we're breaking boundaries, which are ridiculous in compute and in scaling.
But the interesting is if whenever there's something new, like is that actually because we understood the problem and we were able to solve the problem, or did we just throw more compute at it?
Well, that's it. If the next step is still in scaling up with compute, just throwing more stuff at it.
The next step is quantum, right?
Yeah, we didn't crack it yet. So the moment it starts scaling down again, and we saw there's a good leeway. The whole DeepSeek thing is like, oh, okay, you can do this with pocket money. Well,
a couple lousy millions.
Yeah. A couple of lousy millions. You can also do this. Basically, you're a customer for a few weeks for OpenAI, and now you built your own.
Yeah.
This is how it works in the end, and like it's not much different than making a smaller model based on synthetic data, because this thing was just learning from the big brother.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are funny conversations in that one. But
I think again,
it's nothing new in the end.
I think as with most things in tech, we've only just scratched the surface. I'm really curious to see where we are, let's say 10 years from now. But while we're all here, do you know what time it is?
Is it time for a totally random question?
It's time for a totally random question. Megan, if you had to choose a non-domesticated animal to be your best friend, which one would you pick? So the non-domesticated part is just that dogs and cats are out of the equation, right? Or hamsters.
Okay, does it mean that I get to train them or try to train them?
Yeah, I mean, they're your best friends. So if you want to train them, then
that's not what I do with
that's
my
your
friends.
choice.
I tried to train Rick, but it's not working.
Never worked.
Well, I'm a D&D obsessed person. And in D&D, you can have a familiar, which is basically like a mythical little creature that's always by your side.
Yeah.
It's probably a stupid choice, but I'd love a mini dragon.
Wow. Why is that a stupid choice? I think it's pretty cool, actually.
They're dangerous and they're untrainable.
That's what makes them fun, right? Sometimes you have a friend. They're dangerous, but they're just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And
that
how
is-
impressive would it be if you like have a big meeting at a customer and you just walk in with your dragon?
Right? Oh, it's my buddy.
Yeah.
He's just chilling.
This is Fred. It's my dragon.
Don't make me tap
Fred.
the sign. Dragons at the door.
And what would yours be, Oscar?
Oh wow! But like now, I'm
Yeah, we
thinking
normally don't do this. So I'm really
mythical
curious to see
questions.
what you would come up with. Because I know.
What's your best friend?
Yeah. Mine would be a capybara.
A capybara?
Nice.
I
One
love
of those.
those. They'd just be chilling under a waterfall, just minding their own business.
Ah.
There's this, while you think, there's this little video out there
Mhm.
of a capybara with alligators infested waters. And apparently they're kaimana, so that means that their mouth doesn't open wide enough for them to be able to eat something like a capybara. But the dude's just not phased at all. He just walks through the
Amazing.
crocodiles, goes to the water, said, I want to swim, so that's where I'll be going.
Okay, so that's your friend.
Oh yeah.
Is it your friend
no.
or your spirit animal?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that might be both.
Yeah. No, for me it's like I think it's Pedro.
Pedro,
Yep.
the raccoon.
Raccoon. It's in my head now.
That's easy to put stuff in your head.
Yeah,
man.
that's good. Yeah.
We've had weapon of choice earlier today. We'll explain for those looking at the video.
No.
Okay, going back to a little bit more serious topics. So, one of the things that you actually gave as a potential conversation topic was the diversity in tech and why you think that's important. And then what struck me most was making the tech sector more accessible, which I totally understand, and stop gatekeeping. Could you maybe zoom in a little bit on the gatekeeping part and where you see that as being a problem in the current community?
When I say gatekeeping, what I mean is, it's going to be a bit of a hot take because I know a lot of people don't agree with me.
But then this is going to be the title of the podcast on YouTube.
Yeah.
In all caps.
Perfect.
So we'll make
All
make
caps
sure
clickbait.
Clickbait. We need some clickbait. Yeah.
I think that people in the tech sector, I think that the work that we do is super interesting, but I do think we try to make it sound more complicated than it is sometimes. And I think because I'm huge, like in trying to get especially more women into tech. And the thing I hear most is that they say, but I don't feel welcome at these tech meetups. They talk down on me. They always do a little bit like oh, you little girl, like, you want me to talk slower for you so I can explain all the super like complicated stuff I'm doing. And then once you're in the field, you realize this is like, it's a package. Like, you're just deploying a package. This is not rocket science. Or it's like, yes, you build AI, but it's literally an API. Like, you did not build the AI.
I'm going to add to your hot take.
Well,
I think those are primarily the same people who really said, no, we can't move to cloud because the things I do here on-prem are so complicated, we can never move.
yeah.
Oh.
Those are probably the same people, right? They're just scared for their job because they understand as soon as people come in and see what they're actually doing, they might be out of one.
Yeah, and I think this is also a diversity thing. I think a lot of times, especially
I
now
agree.
in the US, like I know I put down like, let's not go too deep into it, but it pisses me off because
Oh, yeah.
diversity is now being like presented as if these people were really good enough, they'd get into the field themselves. Like it's like if you just want it bad enough and you're smart enough, everybody can get into the tech field. And this is also what I mean by gatekeeping. I don't know if you want to call it old boys network, or it's also like literally a psychological thing that you are more likely to hire somebody that looks like you. So it's the same for me that I'm maybe biased to hire more women instead of men. But it's also just about making room at the table and about inviting diverse perspectives on things. And I think we're forgetting that a little bit sometimes right now.
Yeah, first of all, I totally agree. I also think that it's more prone to happen with people that are maybe not necessarily completely I'm looking for the right word. There are people that are not necessarily
for me, it's
confident about their own.
I think it's
about their own.
It's your insecurity
location.
that will make you make stuff up that is harder than it actually is.
Yeah.
Our work is just pulling down a NuGet package and control dotting until something works. Like it's
pushing buttons. Okay, so I'm going to
for like 80% of the software that's made, it's combining things that are already there.
And I don't want to downplay our work because there are difficult components to it, right? But if you look at the general work we're doing, I think a lot more people could work in the tech sector than the amount of people that think they could work here. And it's what I hear all the time, like, oh, you're an AI lead, like you must be doing all this amazing stuff all day long. You must be like some kind of genius. And I'm like,
a wizard.
I'm a wizard.
Yeah.
I'm like,
with your dragon. No.
Yeah, with my dragon. The Dungeons and Dragons obsession doesn't help with this.
But on the other hand, like we also know like ourselves, like even if we're great in what we're doing daily, we see someone else presenting something, it's like, oh crap, like I'm an imposter. So it's also in that circle, and that probably also doesn't help.
I am going to push back just a little bit because we used to have this ecosystem here in the Netherlands where it was really hard to get software developers. And I've literally had talks with people inside the showroom of a car dealership. And if you were to be hired, then you could pick out a car. That's how awesome and horrible the times were at that point in time. So at that point in time, a lot of people made the jump to tech or to software development more specifically for the wrong reasons. And I do think that there's still a part of craftsmanship in what we do. I also think a lot more people would be able to do what we're doing because yes, it is even, especially with all of the abstractions that have been added over the years, a lot of the complexity is now moved to the background. So I totally agree with a lot more people should be able to work in tech. But I do like to think that there's a little bit of craftsmanship in there, and that's not only pulling packages and hitting stuff until it works.
No, and I absolutely agree with that. But as I said, because I do a lot of let me take a step back. I really believe in the whole role model thing. In the beginning of my career, I thought it was bullshit. I was like, what difference does it make if I show up my face compared to if one of you show up their face? Like nobody cares. But the sentence like you can't be it if you can't see it, I think it's so true. And for me, like that's been one of the things in my career, because, and I think at the beginning of my career, I was more like, I'm just going to go into the field. I'm just going to do my work. I'm going to put in the hours, and then, the rewards will come. And if everybody does this, like we'll get there. Like we'll have a 50-50 or whatever percentage of diversity, of whatever kind of groups of diversity you want to have, we'll have that. But then, especially when I started going to conferences, I had so many women coming up to me via LinkedIn and just saying like, it was so refreshing to see a woman on the stage. Like, I really think now that like, I don't need to live in the basement and that I can actually like see the sunlight now and I can try this. I also do a lot of I just call them virtual coffees because it's really nothing more than that, but they call it like mentorships. Or I just sit down with ladies that want to either get into the field or that are considering dropping out of the field because they're really struggling, and just like sitting them down. And what you said, Oscar, about the imposter syndrome, saying like, nobody knows what they're doing. Like, I know you feel like you're not good enough, or maybe sometimes literally colleagues have told them like, you can't do this, you're not good enough, you should go back to the Kruidvat, or you should like just get out of the field basically. And just like these little conversations of saying like, you got this, like everybody can do this, that makes a huge difference. So also diversity, it doesn't need to be, it is a very complex topic, but I think just allowing for people at the table and allowing for diverse perspectives, which we desperately need because the field is moving so fast and there's so many like consequences of the applications and the AIs that we build. And also these things that we're building, the software we're building, it's affecting everyone. It's not just affecting software engineers. It's affecting my grandpa and my grandma that are calling me up and saying like, hey, what is this ChatGPT and why is it telling me to do these things, etc. And I completely lost my train of thought here now.
No problem. So the thing was, you were primarily focusing at getting that place at the table, right? And being able for you to speak to other ladies. How important is allyship in this thing? For instance, from other people or maybe non-women?
Huge, because also like I want to be in a room with all kinds of people. I don't want to be in a room with only women, the same as I don't want to be in a room with only men. And I think sometimes it's just nice to have also men like speaking up and saying like, there is a chair right here next to me at the table, come join. Because then it's also not just a women promoting women or minorities promoting minorities, and it becomes a problem of us all. Or not a problem, but a solution of us all.
Yeah, totally agree on that one.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, right, to make the statement, even though you're completely on your side. It is hard. I'm the default guy in in IT, so
we are the old white men.
If I'm saying that, it's like it's easy to say, but like what to do or how to say it that it doesn't sound basically dumb. It's like you're privileged, so of course.
And you don't want to kick in open doors, right?
No. So
and I do think that the position that you guys are in also sucks, because on the other extreme, like what you're saying, like you are the white privileged men that apparently got everything for free, which is also not true. But this is why also like we're in such a black and white world right now, because at the end of the day, we just want to build cool stuff. And I really believe that we don't really care with who we're building it, as long as we're all participating and having fun and trying, basically.
That's the thing, right? If people just apply themselves, who cares?
Yeah. I have one question, and maybe for you, really good to think about it, to answer, because you're also saying like this profession moves very quickly. So we have a new thing every 3 weeks, basically. Do you think that women in this area are also paused a bit because you just became a mother? I can imagine top of your head is not reading the tech news every night during some periods. So is it? Do you think it's also more work, harder work to be able to keep up or to get back in? While us old white men just cruise through and just have some more time to make those career steps?
I think on the motherhood side, I do think that there's a motherhood penalty. And I think there's a physical component to it. Literally just it takes my body like a year at least to get the hormones stabilized. And,
it's not only about like I'll stay home for 2 days as a man, like it doesn't solve it.
No, I think there's a component to it, and I also underestimated this component before becoming a mother myself. That's just really hard. And I think the most simple example of that is you divide the nights, right? Because the baby is up every 3 hours and you divide the nights. So me and my husband say my husband will stay up until 2 or 3 and do all the feeds, and then I will do them from 3 onwards. But when I hear the baby, my body is just like I'm on, I'm awake. It's like fight or flight. I'm ready. If there's a bear around the corner, I will murder it. Like I am awake. Exactly. And then when I'm up with the baby, and then like my husband can just sleep. He'll wake up maybe a little bit because he's like, why is the baby still crying? But he doesn't have that physical component. And again, like this is my experience. I don't know if this is the same for everybody, but I severely underestimated this part of motherhood.
No, but I can completely agree. I think we had the same when ours were younger. It's just motherly instinct, apparently, that I mean, awake instantly as soon as something starts crying. And that's quite impressive, but also it takes a toll, right?
Yeah, and I think like that's the physical side. We have a cultural side. I think also in the Netherlands, we're not as progressive as we think sometimes. So an example, I work full time. I enjoy working full time because it makes me a better mom. it's a great perk of the tech sector. Like I can usually work at the times that suit for me, at the locations that suit for me, which is amazing. But the amount of comments I've gotten that I'm working full time, like I don't love my children, doesn't your husband earn enough that you have to also work full time? And it really like makes me feel like we're still in 1950. Mm-hmm. but it's also still a thing.
But that people actually think and say this stuff, I just can't. I still can't wrap my head around that.
Just the idea that you think it, you maybe cannot help that one, but saying things out loud, you could shut up sometimes.
And it's also not just older generation, right? It's also younger generation, and especially like I don't know. I think we live in a mean world, and it's also in the parenthood thing, also towards men and men that become fathers. We're also mean at times. But it's again also this is complicated. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to add to the discussion that we've had today, or anything that you would like to get back to?
Keep tech accessible. Have fun while you're doing it, because it is a really fun field. We forget that sometimes with all the crap that's happening. And I'm super happy to finally be on this talk. So thank you for having me.
Well, I'm really happy that we had you on today.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying maybe I'll start hunting you next week to get you back.
In a year or two.
Megan, thank you so much.
It was an
awesome talk.
Thank you.
It's great.
Thank you for listening to Betatalks, the podcast. Betatalks is made possible by Betabit Managed Software Development.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.